There, now it's going.
A temperate grassland, it's also called a prairie.
Oh.
Pampa, outback, steppe.
Savannah?
It's usually located, no, that's tropical grassland. Temperate grasslands are usually located in the middle of continents. There's a big grassland in America, kind of the Midwest. And you can see a lot of grassland there in Asia. This is where most of the crops in the world are from. It has really good soil. And see, with the grasses, they live just for a short time, and then they die. And since they're thin, they decompose very quickly, and their nutrients go down into the soil. So it's fast decomposition and very nutritious soil. So that's a good place to plant crops. All you got to do is you cut the grass and you can plant crops there. And so most of the crops in the world are planted in these grassland areas. There's also no trees. Why don't we have trees in the grassland? Well, there's not enough rainfall for them. It is semi-arid, and so trees need a whole lot of rain. So if you don't have enough rain, you'll not grow trees. You'll just grow grasses. And so in most of the places where they're growing crops, they do some irrigation where they water their crops. Good soil, water your crops, get good growth. Make sense?
So they need to irrigate?
Yeah, they irrigate. They bring in water and water their plants. Video footage.
Grasslands are typically found in the interiors of continents. These lands provide a natural pasture for herds of grazing animals such as bison and antelope. The soils of grasslands are very fertile due to the growth and decay of many plants. Burrowing animals such as prairie dogs, rabbits, and gophers are common in temperate grasslands.
There's no place to hide in the grassland, so you usually hide in the ground. Dig down deep. The chaparral, it's also called the scrub forest. This also is kind of low in water, and so you don't have trees growing there, but you have enough for bushes, and you get a lot of bushes there. We have a bunch of chaparral in Southern California. Let's see if we can find it here on the map. Chaparral is the
Top.
oh, there it is, that color. See, oh, there we go. Look right there. If you go out to LA and hike around, there it is. Looks like some located here. Look at Chaparral.
Summit Straits.
Where?
Australia, down on the left.
Here?
The very bottom.
Oh, there. Yep. Good eye. So it's basically just a bunch of bushes and no trees. You get a bunch of insects and reptiles living in these areas. Some organisms that can conserve water, birds.
Birds
Chaparral.
that eat insects.
What's that?
Birds that eat the insects.
Yeah, birds will eat the insects. Reptiles will eat the insects. A little bit of a food chain going on there. Desert, you're all familiar with deserts. Very little rain, less than 25 centimeters of rain a year. It will rain some though, so you do have some plants, just not many. They're usually spread out, spaced out, so each of them have room to, they put their roots out wide. They can suck up any water that does fall. Or they have, you can find a lot of plants in the desert that have mechanisms for storing water, like a cactus stores the water in its stem. And then it's got a bunch of needles to keep things from eating it.
Do they tap into the groundwater?
Usually the groundwater is too
Very
deep
low.
in a desert, yeah. So you don't have many plants that do that, but there are some.
A desert is a region that receives less than 25 centimeters of rain a year. Vegetation in deserts is sparse and consists of cacti, sagebrush, and other plants with adaptations to hot, dry conditions. Reptiles such as snakes and lizards are common in deserts. These animals have a thick, waterproof skin and excrete dry waste materials, which helps conserve water.
A lot of these desert reptiles and insects, they never drink water their whole lives.
How?
They make water with their mitochondrions. Do you remember the water of metabolism? Remember that? When the mitochondrions break down glucose, some water comes out of that. So as long as you eat sugars, like if you eat an insect, your mitochondrions will make enough water. And then if you have a very tough skin that won't let any water out, you've got enough water. You just don't have to drink. They probably never get thirsty.
Or get hungry.
Now some of them will drink when given the opportunity, but there are some places that are so dry there's almost never any rain. We should talk a bit about the tropical rainforests. This is where the highest temperatures and highest amount of rainfalls are. They support a huge variety of plants and animals. The rainforest has lots of animals and insects living on the ground, and then it has the canopy up at the top where organisms can live. And then there's also usually epiphytes, which are plants that live on the trees attached to them.
Mosses?
Mosses, there's a lot of mosses in there. You got a lot of flowering plants too, just living on the sides of the trees. So there's just a wide variety of plants and animals, year-round growth. The highest biodiversity in the world are in tropical rainforests, and we're losing the tropical rainforests very quickly because they're usually located in areas that are poor, and people will cut down the trees for money and sell the wood, and then we'll try to farm on the areas where they've cut the trees down, and they usually don't have lots of money for fertilizers and that sort of thing, so they'll cut and they'll farm for a while, and when the soil becomes depleted, they'll cut some more. It's called slash and burn farming. You slash, cut down the trees, you burn them up, and then you plant crops for a few seasons, and then you move on to the next site. And we're losing our rainforest because of these techniques. And you have hundreds of thousands of acres every year that are being cut, and the rainforests are way smaller than they used to be. Just 50, 100 years ago, there's a very small percentage left. So we're trying to protect our rainforests, but it's difficult. There's scientists that are going into the rainforest and studying them and trying to find all the different, because there's so many different types of plants and animals, there's probably a lot of drugs in the rainforest, that the chemicals that are made by the plants that would be useful for humans. And we want to find them before the rainforest disappear. This is a movie that you can check out. It's called Medicine Man, about a scientist that goes into the rainforest, and it's got Sean Connery in it. He's a good actor. And he goes into the rainforest to try and find this cure for cancer. It's a good movie. You get extra credit if you watch it. Video footage of the rainforest.
The widest diversity of life forms in the world can be found in the tropical rainforests that exist in areas near the equator. The vegetation in these forests is extremely thick due to the more than 200 centimeters of rain these areas receive annually. The animal life of a rainforest includes three-toed sloths that move slowly and silently through the canopy and hang upside down from the branches with their long hook-like claws. Monkeys swing easily from tree to tree, searching for fruits and seeds. Jaguars prowl the forest floor in search of a small mammal for a meal.
Cool. I went to a trip to the rainforest in Ecuador. It was pretty cool.
Did you see a jaguar?
No, it was, we were in the cloud forest, which was, it's up higher altitude, and you don't get those bigger mammals there.
Smaller mammals.
Yeah, you get little
Why don't they outlaw slash and burn?
Well, because a lot of the countries where it's going on, that's the only way that people can make a living. So if you outlaw it, then they have nothing that they can do. Then they would overthrow the government. So it's hard for these governments to put that.
A focal point for environmentalists.
And for good reason, rainforests have provided doctors with the ingredients to help treat a variety of illnesses.
Some even say, Wendy, the elusive cure for cancer is hidden somewhere in the millions of acres of lush foliage that is on the verge of being destroyed forever.
Unfortunately, many of the rainforest's most precious secrets lie undiscovered, high up in the treetops beyond the reach of science. But one French botanist has come up with an ingenious way of studying the rainforest from above. How does he do that?
It's the most important and interesting place in the earth for the biologists because of the billions of new species, unknown species. Our work helps us to understand what we are losing when we lose the tropical rainforest. This work is vital in order to save the forest and, in fact, to save mankind.
In his quest to save the rainforest, Professor Halley developed this. What is it? The world's only floating rainforest laboratory. A raft that's designed to reach the unreachable treetops where hundreds of species of plants and animals have lived without being studied. How did he come up with the idea to build it?
My idea came in 1974. I was sitting on the forest floor with a group of my students. It was dark and muddy, and suddenly, looking at the canopy, we saw brilliant sun and gorgeous trees full of life. I had to find a way to get up to the canopy.
How did he do that? His first experiment was to tow it with a hot air balloon. It worked fine until the raft landed on the treetops and the weight of the balloon caused it to cave in on itself. The crew was tossed overboard and had to be rescued by the French army. As his shattered dream drifted away, Pierre was struck with an idea. He turned to a world-renowned expert in inflatable flying objects, Pierre Lindström. Pierre scrapped the balloon and built a blimp. It took a crew of 25 people 6 months to build it. Christened the Heartopia, the 2-ton raft was 141 feet long and powered by a Rolls-Royce engine. Next, they redesigned the raft for strength and durability. How? They built it in the shape of a large wheel with 6 metal spokes coming out of the center. The screen mesh floor was made of Kevlar, the same material used for bulletproof vests. In 1989, the Heartopia makes its maiden voyage. It set sail for the Petiso rainforest. When they reach the site they want to explore, the raft is lowered onto the forest roof. Scientists leap from the gondola onto the net. The raft is uncoupled and the airship flies away, leaving them to do their work. Each journey is like visiting a new world.
It's the most exciting feeling to walk over the trees. It's like sailing because everything is moving and everything is floating. You can feel a little bit like God.
So, how do they know what to collect? Each scientist has a very specific assignment. Some study birds and insects. Others gather seeds and analyze their content. And others harvest leaves. But how do they study the rich life out of reach below them? They rappel down to it using ropes and pulleys. After they gather their samples, they hoist themselves back up to the raft. Just another day in the life of a scientist. After 24 hours, 130 feet up in the trees, it's time to go home. Picking up the raft and crew takes precision planning. It's the most difficult maneuver of the expedition. How do they do it? Tow lines are tossed down to the team on the raft, who fasten them to the inflatable tubes. It takes 7 lines to secure it. They must be anchored properly or risk disaster. As the balloon hovers overhead, the pilot is in constant radio communication with the crew. The last rope is secured, and it's time for liftoff. They're returning home with hundreds of specimens. One could unlock the mysteries of an incurable disease. Some species only come out at night, so the raft often makes late-night runs into the forest. The dangers increase, but the scientists have an evacuation plan in place that can quickly airlift them out if one of them gets bitten or hurt. But the discoveries are worth the risks. Frogs no bigger than a fingertip, rare beetles found nowhere else on Earth, and amazingly quick-moving caterpillars whose origins date back millions of years. So, just how valuable is the raft? It has preserved many of the rainforest's vanishing treasures and led to breakthroughs in medicine.
We must learn how the rainforest works. And the canopy raft is a great new way of doing it.
Just how important is the raft? Well, consider this. An estimated 25 million acres of rainforest are wiped out every year, along with hundreds of species of animals, birds, and insects.
Sad reality, but the raft will help scientists explore the rainforest and hopefully help them save it.
Isn't that cool? See, that's what you could do.
Seems a
Get
little bit
scientists
dangerous.
that studies the rainforest. Here's a tropical grassland, also called a savanna. This is what you see if you ever watch The Lion King or whatever. You find these in Africa. It's again semi-arid, so that means there's not quite enough rainfall to support a lot of trees. You might have a few scattered trees here and there. Mostly grass. There's usually a rainy season and then a very dry season. A lot of the animals will migrate, will go from one place to another searching for water. Y'all have seen the savannah before on TV. Pretty cool place. We also need to talk about the aquatic biomes. That's biomes that occur in the water, not on the land. And there's a whole bunch of different kinds. The main factor dividing them is whether the salinity, whether it's salt or not. Salt water versus fresh water. Most of the water on Earth is salt water. About 97%, 98% of the water on Earth is salt water. The other 2% is fresh water, and something like 95% of the fresh water is in glaciers. It's locked up as ice. There's huge amounts of ice at the poles. And so the rest, only 5% or so of the fresh water is water that's actually in rivers and streams and freshwater lakes and groundwater. It's very, very little there for us to use, but it's enough where we have freshwater biomes and saltwater biomes. If you take marine biology, that's a class that just studies the saltwater biome. And we go out and we go to the Epworth and we go to the marsh and we go to the beach and we look at the different organisms there. It's a pretty cool class if you like that kind of thing. I'll show you a study that some of our students have started. It's pretty cool. We are studying the growth of barnacles and other organisms that attach to surfaces. And they sent us these. Actual scientists sent us these things in the mail. And what we do is we hang them from a dock. Tie them to a dock and hang them down in the water. And organisms will grow on these things right here. And every week you pull them up and you take pictures of the 4 tiles and measure the growth that's on them. And you scrape them off. With a scraper, you scrape one, and then the next week you scrape that one, and then the next week you scrape that one, and then the next week you scrape that one. and you let it run for months and check it every week, take pictures, send the pictures away to these scientists that are studying this all up and down the East Coast. Isn't that cool? That's one of the projects we're doing in marine bio. Yeah.
Did they give it to you for free, or did you have to buy that?
For free, actually. They had to pay for it.
Oh.
It's part of their research budget.
Why'd they give it to us?
What's that?
Why'd they give it to the school?
Well, they need people to go out and deploy these things.
Oh.
So they're sitting at a university in, I forget where he's from now. Some university somewhere, and they're send these out all over the coast to schools, to kids and college kids, students to deploy and take pictures of and send them the data back.
So do we basically do that? We send most of our data to them as well?
Yeah, we send all the data. Yeah. We just started doing it, but it's pretty cool. So anyway, if you want to study marine biology and study all the organisms, you can take that class while you're here, and it's a one-semester class. It's usually juniors and seniors that are taking it. You need to know this is zones of the ocean. Now, there's a whole lot of words here. We're not going to make you know all those words. That's something that we learn in marine biology, all the different names for the different ocean zones. But I do want you to know two of these words. The photic zone, see that word there, photic?
Light.
That's where light can penetrate. So light will penetrate the first couple hundred meters of the water. If you go deeper than 200 meters, it's going to be dark. And but the first couple hundred meters has light. That's the photic zone, and that's where you find the phytoplankton. Phytoplankton are floating organisms that float near the top, and they can do photosynthesis. It's usually algae and bacteria. They're green in color, and they can do photosynthesis. If you go to the ocean and look at the water, here it looks brown because of all the silt that comes out of the marsh when the tide goes out. There's a bunch of marsh mud. But if you go out a mile or two, all that silt is settled out, and you'll see the water looks kind of green. And the green-looking water is because of all the phytoplankton in it. They're microscopic little algae floating all around in the ocean, and it makes the water look kind of green. And then the zooplankton are little creatures that eat the phytoplankton. And both of these are almost either microscopic or almost microscopic creatures, real small creatures that just float around and either do photosynthesis or eat organisms that do it. And then what you'll have is larger organisms that eat the plankton. They either eat the zooplankton or the phytoplankton, like shrimp. Now, that's what shrimp, if you ever wonder what does shrimp eat, they're eating these little organisms. And then there are fish that eat the shrimp, and there are bigger fish that eat the little fish, and so on. Then you got your food chain.
And then you got sharks.
You got sharks at the top, yeah.
And then you have dolphins above sharks.
Could bigger shrimp eat littler
Dolphins
shrimp?
don't usually eat sharks, but I guess they could. What's that?
Could bigger fish eat littler? Bigger shrimp eat littler shrimp?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Now, there are tiny shrimp that float around as zooplankton, the little babies, and they'll grow into bigger shrimp. So I don't know if shrimp eat those things. Maybe they do. So we call it the photic zone that has light, and we call it the aphotic zone where it's dark. You got to know those words. Another thing you need to know about the ocean and all places, what's the word I'm looking for? Aquatic, all the aquatic ecosystems. The nutrients that are in the water vary. Usually at the surface, where the waves are crashing and churning, you have a lot of oxygen. So it's high in oxygen at the surface, but low in oxygen as you go deeper down. Because oxygen is very plentiful in the atmosphere and it diffuses into the water at the surface. It's helped by the churning waves. And so you'll find a lot of organisms near the top because they like oxygen.
So they can't swim any deeper?
some can go deeper, but some the pressure is too great when you go deeper. So oxygen is one thing that determines the amount of organisms. There are other nutrients that determine the amount of organisms. Stuff like nitrogen and phosphorus are brought in from rivers, and the rivers spill out into the ocean and release a lot of nutrition that the animals in the oceans can use, or the phytoplankton in the oceans can use. So the nutrients that are in the water play a big role in what organisms can be supported. Now you need to know the 3 types of living things in the aquatic ecosystems. Plankton I already talked about. Plankton means little tiny things that float around in the water and do photosynthesis. We call them, or either do photosynthesis or eat things that do photosynthesis. We call them plankton if they can't swim against the current. They're plankton if they're just floating along, pulled along by the current. Just go where the current goes. We call them nekton if they can swim against the current. That right there is a lanternfish that has a little light here that glows and allows it to be able to see even in the deep, dark depths of the ocean.
Isn't it also attracted bright, like a fishing rod?
Yeah, it can. It'll use that to attract its right.
What's the difference between an anglerfish and a lanternfish?
Anglerfish doesn't make light,
Okay.
and the lanternfish does. They both have that little thing.
How does it make the light?
They have cells that
Bioluminescent?
break apart ATP and use that energy to make light. It's called bioluminescence. And there's a lot of organisms down deep in the ocean that can do that, that can make their own light.
How much of the ocean have we discovered or seen?
Well, humans haven't visited very much of it because it's so hard to get down there. It's so much pressure. So probably, I would guess, 1% or something very small. But we do know a lot about what's down there by other ways other than actually visiting it. You know, you can bounce
Drones.
radio waves off the bottom and get a picture of what's on the bottom. You can send out drones, send out sonar and waves and things like that. Benthos means organisms that crawl along the bottom. This shows some mollusks and some starfish. There's worms crawling along the bottom of the ocean. So benthos means crawling along the bottom. Plankton means floating around with the current. And nekton means able to swim against the current wherever you want to go. Coral are just stuck in one place, stuck to the bottom. So I guess they would be referred to as benthos. Yeah.
So benthos can refer to either deeper. There are different layers of the ocean that benthos could be on, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Benthos just means crawling along the bottom.
They don't swim.
Don't swim, yeah.
What do crab?
Benthos.
They can swim.
A crab would, well, they can swim a little bit. That's a good question. I guess they're probably benthos usually crawling along the bottom. Here's a cool video about aquatic ecosystems.
Oh, these guys are hungry.
But they miss Mia. I can't wait till she's back from Hawaii.
I know. Hey, she should bring some fish back for her tank.
That'd be cool if she could, but it'd never work. These fish are freshwater fish.
So, they can still be friends.
Sure, but the fish that live in the ocean are saltwater fish. They'd never survive in this freshwater tank.
I thought fish just needed water to survive.
All fish need water, but different fish need different places and different natural conditions in which to live. Those places and conditions are called a habitat.
So the saltwater fish can't survive in the same habitat as the fish in this tank?
No, they can't. There are 2 different kinds of aquatic ecosystems, saltwater and freshwater. Saltwater fish live in the ocean. The ocean is a saltwater ecosystem. This tank is a freshwater ecosystem. Ponds, swamps, and bogs are freshwater ecosystems.
I never knew there was a difference.
The main difference between aquatic ecosystems is salt. Freshwater ecosystems are not salty. Well, freshwater has a tiny bit of salt, but not enough to make a difference. Creatures like snails, worms, and frogs live in freshwater. Plants like cattails and arrowheads grow there too.
Sounds like the swamp behind my house. Saltwater fish are so much cooler. Mia sent me a pic of one, and it was bright pink like your guitar. It had black tiger stripes and blue fins.
Saltwater fish are a lot different than freshwater fish, and so is their saltwater ecosystem. It's very salty and has different habitats, or zones, where different organisms live.
Like a deep end and a shallow end?
Kinda. There are 3 habitats, or zones: intertidal, open ocean upper region, and open ocean lower region. Different organisms live in these different zones. The shallow end is the intertidal. This is where the tide comes in and out, and is the top part of the water. Crabs, mussels, and barnacles live in this zone. So do plankton.
Plankton?
Plankton are organisms that float on water. They are very small, but very important. They make oxygen.
Well, what about the other zones?
Below the intertidal zone is the open ocean upper region. This is where most of the fish you know live, along with turtles, whales, and sharks. These are all called nekton. Nekton are organisms that float in water.
And then there's the bottom.
Right. The open ocean lower region is the darkest, coldest zone. Down here in the dark, there are even fish that light up. This is where the benthos live. Benthos are bottom dwellers. Eels and shrimp are benthos.
Shrimp. I love benthos. For dinner.
Deep, Sam. Deep.
Well, at least now I know the difference between saltwater and freshwater ecosystems. Saltwater ecosystems are very salty, and freshwater ecosystems are not as salty. There are different habitats in aquatic ecosystems. Each habitat is unique and is a home to different organisms.
And no matter how cool they are, saltwater fish can't live in a freshwater tank.
I know. Maybe I can paint Mia's fish. Think she'd notice?
Sam, don't even think about it.
Sam.
What?
Have y'all ever heard of Gray's Reef?
Yes, sir.
Nope.
Right offshore here
Wasn't it,
is a
Grey's Anatomy.
is an ecosystem called Gray's Reef. It's just about 25 miles offshore here. It's a marine sanctuary that's a thriving ecosystem studied by scientists. Take a look at this.
Yes,
wasn't it an Indian civilization at one point?
Yeah, because
The water
before the Ice Age. Yeah.
As the last ice age came to an end, rising seas from melting ice swallowed thousands of miles of the eastern seaboard into the Atlantic Ocean and gave shape to the continent we now recognize. Before that, Paleo-Americans may have lived along the expanded Georgian coast, and fossils show that even the mighty mastodon once called this place home. Today, a glimpse beneath the waves reveals what was once the kingdom of land-based life has become one of the most diverse and vibrant habitats for marine life on the East Coast. This extraordinary place is helping reshape how communities understand and interact with the world's ocean. Gray's Reef National Marine Sanctuary. Designated by President Jimmy Carter in 1981, it is now one of 14 sites in NOAA's National Marine Sanctuary System, named in honor of Milton Sam Gray of the University of Georgia Marine Institute, who drew attention to the area through exploration in the 1960s. The 22-square-mile sanctuary is one of the largest live-bottom reefs in the southeast United States, and home to more than 200 species of colorful fish and dense populations of coral, sponges, and other marine organisms. Like bottlenose dolphins and endangered loggerhead sea turtles that seek refuge within colorful rocky outcroppings. It's no wonder that Gray's Reef is a popular destination for divers and recreational fishermen, as well as a hotspot for research and education. Though there there are many challenges facing the ocean today, Gray's Reef National Marine Sanctuary, together with the community, is making a difference right off the Georgia coast. And you can help. Whether you're a local or just visiting, volunteer your time and expertise to the sanctuary. Join one of our many events and outreach activities. Enjoy Gray's Reef responsibly, or help spread the word about this underwater treasure. Its value is immeasurable in helping keep our blue planet protected and healthy for generations to come.